I'm a fire team leader at the time, trying to get my Marines to cover so we can at least get out of the kill zone and be able to return fire and survive this. One of my very good friends, Paul, winds up getting shot, and he's bleeding out there, and we're trying to get him medevac, but we can't. So we're doing the best we can, but he's bleeding out and he's dying. And that was the first point for me in my young life where everything became extremely personal. I didn't think about it at the time. I didn't have time to grieve what was going on, and Paul died. And we all missed him. I missed him terribly.
It really started with a conversation with my dad, and that was sort of the inspiration for the whole thing, and or the springboard, so to speak. And once that happened, and once I was looking back at that interview, or that story, or that videotape, I thought, wow, this could be something if I continued this, you know. And so that was really the springboard that made the whole thing start happening. Yes, it's a very common occurrence that people don't like to really talk about their experiences until later in life. So I was lucky to be there when he did finally talk about it, because that kind of started the whole project. Actually, talking with my dad brought up a lot of issues that in growing up you sort of don't understand, but you experience, but you don't quite know how to process it. I think from, of course, my limited research within the context of making this record, what I found out was that it's a pretty extreme situation that these very young people go into when they go to war, and they're on the battlefield, and they're dealing with life and death situations where previously perhaps the most intense experience they had was figuring out who their date was going to be for prom, you know. And so it can be rather traumatic for 19, 20-year-old kids, you know. So yeah, it affects them in a way. They bring that with them through life, and it affects their other relationships in their life, ones with their wives and husbands and children as well. And you know, later in life, hopefully, you know, one has cultivated a dialogue with their children, and where they can talk and feel free to express themselves, and you work through some of those issues that maybe got kind of swept under the rug as a child, you know. And I think my relationship with my dad is probably a lot deeper now that he shared that part of his life with me. I didn't really find a lot of differences between soldiers of varying generations and different conflicts, which I was surprised. I thought it would all be very different. But what I found interviewing soldiers from World War II up to the present was that although technologies change, we're using different armaments and tanks and vehicles and weapons, you know, the territory is different perhaps, but the soldier stories remain very constant because they're human stories. They're people in situations dealing with life or death situations. They're dealing with heroism, struggling with honor, call to duty, struggling with being separated from their families and children and wives. And these are things that the soldier experiences no matter what generation they're from or even what country they're from. I think that these stories will resonate with soldiers from other countries, other places as well. Well, when I was conducting the interviews with people, I met all types of people. People that were just back from Iraq, who were very raw, and people that had been back from conflict for many, many years. World War II veterans that had been back forever and that were in the last stages of their lives. So it was interesting to see how they processed their experiences at different points of their life, you know. I met some people that could barely construct a sentence, and others that were incredibly articulate, that could write books. So it was really dependent upon the content of the conversation as to whether it ended up on the actual record or not. Some of the audio was stunning, and you had many things to choose from. You could take the song in many different directions, and other times you only had a line or two, you know. And in the beginning, I didn't really know what I was looking for, honestly. I didn't know what to write about, you know, and it was only through collecting many stories that I started seeing these commonalities and these experiences that were very similar, and that to me was a clue that, well, this is a song, you know. And so then I started looking in and looking deeper into the actual content of what they were saying, and looking for sound bites that would be striking, you know. And then wishing that I would have asked them different questions in order to get different answers, you know. So then I was becoming an interviewer, and realizing that I was failing miserably and had much to learn. But it became a psychological game that I rather enjoyed after a while, of trying to find, you know, an answer within the questions, and then an answer that was very suitable for what I was going to use it for, you know. It's almost like leading them down a pathway, which wasn't successful at all. It was the stuff that came up randomly, which was the best stuff that I ended up using. Starting out, I was just using a camcorder, you know, with no external speakers or anything like that. And because, again, I didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do with this. And as I progressed along, I realized, oh, you know, I want to use their voices. I want the actual emotion that they're feeling. I want to hear the statements, because that's what's going to give this song validity, you know. And so, oh, well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to have to actually conduct an interview here, you know. I can't just have a conversation and be filming it while I'm talking with them. I have to prepare for it, you know. So that became an issue, correlating people's schedules and flying out to meet them, or having them fly in and meet me someplace, or on tour actually became a place where I found that we could meet a lot. Because of my traveling, I'd meet somebody in their state or near their city or something like that. So it became its own kind of process in order to collect these stories, you know. We thought about at some point redoing some of the conversation that we'd had with people, because the audio was recorded so badly, or there was noises that we couldn't deal with. But we decided that that would be inappropriate because of what we were writing about. You know, we didn't want to stage anything. And honestly, staging stuff, you never get the emotion of it, you know, because these people aren't actors, they're not professional thespians, you know, they're just people, you know, doing their job, you know. So it would come off sounding insincere, and we didn't want that, you know. So we ended up suffering with some of the audio in some of the places, and trying to use technology to change it around and clean it up, you know. I think in some of the stuff, if you listen really closely, you can hear hammering going on, or, you know, background noises at some of the venues that we were playing. And we had people sit in the dressing room and do interviews, you know, like that.
I swear